This video is going to be a little different. The holiday season is coming up, and for us here in the States, that means kicking things off with Thanksgiving. Although Magic is usually a season-agnostic game, that doesn't mean there isn't something here to celebrate the occasion with. Also, I just miss when YouTubers used to make holiday specials. So today, I want to take some time and talk about the many foods of Magic. I'm going to be going through every food token in the game, and giving some of my thoughts about how good of a Thanksgiving dish each of them would make. We should set some ground rules. I'm making my judgments based on how appropriate the individual food items are for the occasion, how much effort was put into the dish, and whether or not I think it would actively endanger my life to consume. To keep things simple and familiar, after evaluating a token, I'm going to put it in a tier, somewhere between A and F. I'm not getting crazy and putting something in Goku tier. Alright, with that out of the way, I think we can get started. At first glance, this Eldraine classic looks a lot more Thanksgiving than it actually is. The corkscrew bananas, for some reason, convinced me there was a cornucopia in this image, but there isn't. The colors make it seem like a well-rounded Thanksgiving meal with reds, browns, and yellows, but when you actually take inventory here, you realize it's 4 pieces of unprepared fruit. Apple dishes might be a staple of Thanksgiving, but solo apples aren't carrying much weight for me. C tier. Next, we're going to take a page out of Logan Paul's book and look at a dead body. Modern Horizons 3 gives us this token, and it's actually a great pick for Thanksgiving. Obviously, the body occupies most of the attention of the image, but look around. Mashed potatoes, bratwurst, cheese, a haunch of presumably some sort of bird, and a side of green beans under those sausages. It gets points for all of these. This would maybe be one of the best Thanksgiving dishes in Magic if it weren't contaminated. As it is now, I'm going to give it a B tier. So the next token is from Foundations, and it looks like some kind of stew. It's got a brown broth, and it's served with a slice of bread. Strong start, but it keeps going. Looks like a haunch of meat makes a reappearance here, and a line of salad through the middle. What Thanksgiving is complete without a salad that like 10% of the guests touch? Also, giving bonus points for love and care. The person making this is in plate mail, meaning he's probably in a battle or a dungeon, and this is a lot of effort to put in that kind of environment. A tier. The majority of Lord of the Rings has fantastic food. This is, however, a whole dude, and on top of that, he's undercooked. F tier. From the wilds of Eldraine, we get, this delight. It's hitting on some key food groups, a stew and a bread, but the food is so thoroughly rotten, it's hard to tell what it was even supposed to be. The eyeball being left in shows a lack of care, and there's several raw ingredients thrown in for no reason. D tier. Another Wilds of Eldraine stinker is the cactus slime. First of all, this thing is spiked and may be sentient. I hate the idea of my food trying to eat me back. And candy? Wrong holiday. See you in October for Halloween. F tier. I was surprised to see Bloomborough only had 1 food token. So there's a lot of fruit here, but a couple things. First, it's actually been prepared into something instead of lazily placed on a dish. Second, there's a side salad as well as decorations, so the effort isn't being skipped on. And lastly, we hit on a core dish in the form of good old-fashioned apple pies. Nothing quite as American as that. A tier. Doctor Who brings us a perfectly good grilled cheese, but unfortunately, cheeses that are grilled aren't exactly part of the season. And pickles? I might have heard of weirder, but I don't want it at the buffet table. C tier. Speaking of Doctor Who, this is just gummy bears in a bag. I'm sure they're safe to eat, but anything pre-packaged loses points to me. Imagine, you put in a night's worth of work baking something amazing, then your aunt comes along and puts down a bag of chips next to it. D tier. That's a scorpion. That's straight up a scorpion. Ignoring the scorpion, there is meat, but it's the thin, sinewy tissue around the jaw of an animal. I'm not sure that constitutes Thanksgiving. And who keeps bringing raw fruit? I'm sure Asmorano, Martika Dyson, and Akuldakar worked really hard on this, but I'm going to have to pass. F tier. The original Throne of Eldraine was more on point for the occasion than its revisit. We have an array of homemade baked goods here that were certainly made with love. Also, the decor feels right. I know it's supposed to be a basket, not a cornucopia, but the woven nature of it makes it feel Thanksgiving regardless. This is a fantastic dessert, but that's all it's bringing to the table, so it's going into B tier. To any good party, someone always has to bring drinks, but, by definition, they're going to be prepackaged. I'm not necessarily opposed to the soda, that's okay. The vending machine, on the other hand, is... You're gonna make me pay 2 treasures just to crack open a cold one at my own Thanksgiving dinner? This is the card you play when you insist your friends Venmo you for everything. The Nuka-Cola is C tier, and the machine is D tier. On to Secret Lair, Year of the Rabbit. We've all heard of Chinese for Christmas dinner, but Thanksgiving? That's a bit of a stretch. fish instead of turkey, soup instead of stew, dumplings instead of rolls, and what looks to be a salad in the middle. Prepare with care, absolutely, just not necessarily in line with the holiday. C tier. Now here's the Middle Earth we know and love. This plate has everything. Several breads, multiple types of meat including what might be turkey in the top left corner, some pie in the other corner, and many types of fruit. Importantly, these are prepared as jams instead of just served raw, outside of the apples. If we interpret the red jelly as cranberry sauce, this is Thanksgiving on a table. A tier, no contest. Okay, this one is pretty low effort. Another Doctor Who token brings us some form of fried stick and what looks to be custard? I haven't watched the series, so we're going with some unknowns here, but regardless of what these two items could be, I don't think Thanksgiving is within the realm of possibility for either. This is something you whip up for yourself at like 3 a.m. D tier. With Final Fantasy, we got this spread. So we're hitting some bases. Meat, veggies, bread, but a few oddities. First of all, that's just a burger. Second, whatever these chops are go with lemons, not gravy. Also, the cup looks like either fries or noodles. This feels much closer to a barbecue than a Thanksgiving to me. C tier, but I might be convinced to bring it higher. Next, we have the 4 Japanese secret layer food tokens. Another that's just a hamburger card, but at least they brought a side. The pudding a la mode is interesting. On one hand, a lot of non-Thanksgiving ingredients are here, including several types of raw fruit. On the other hand, one of those fruits is an apple, pudding isn't unheard of as a Thanksgiving dessert, and the presence of cinnamon on the plate brings this back for me a bit. Unfortunately, they only go downhill from here. The bento box, while adorable, has broccoli and maybe a deviled egg. Outside of that, nothing fits the holiday. The other is just a sushi platter. Looks fantastic, but again seems a little out of season. The burger and pudding are going into C tier, while bento and sushi are in D tier. Pie. It's tough to hit the nail on the head harder than that. It's about as synonymous with Thanksgiving as turkey itself. Speaking of which, it's kind of hard to see, but in the background there is a whole cooked bird. It doesn't stop there though. We get accompanying drinks, some sort of cookie, and eggs. They're still in the shell, so they can't be deviled, but this token still gets points for all these heavy hitters. So despite the fact that this pie is probably a person, it gets a solid A tier. Okay, let's get modern. No, not with Horizons, but with a new release, Avatar: The Last Airbender. The flaming fire flakes have an insane name, and no matter how long I spend on the wiki, I cannot seem to find what the heck they actually are, besides spicy. In my best estimations, they seem like some kind of chip or rind. Although obviously home-cooked, I'd be miffed if someone brought Takis to the function, and for that reason, I'm out. High D tier. Wrapping up the Fallout tokens, we have some packaged goods. So it's pre-made, probably expired, but upon further inspection, we have a whopping 5 cans of baked beans. This is huge for Thanksgiving, and from what I can tell, none of the other tokens have any. There's also a can of Spam here, which I can't decide if it should lose or gain points for. I'm gonna tentatively give this a C tier, and hope I don't get radiation poisoning. Time for a third helping of Lord of the Rings. I'm having a tough time making out what meat is in the pan. It's almost certainly bacon, but the glare is making it hard to tell. Not necessarily a Thanksgiving food, but a side of potatoes, mushrooms, and apples pushes this further in the holiday direction. If those apples were a pie, or the bacon was turkey, I think this would be an easy A, but as it stands, we're throwing it in B tier. From the far reaches of the Space Festival comes a towering sundae on top of a funnel cake. Fair food shares a lot of properties with Thanksgiving food. A focus on meat and carbs, and knowledge that it's going to sit heavy in your stomach later. This is definitely much sweeter than we're looking for though, and although the cherries make me want to cope about this being something akin to a cherry pie, that feels like trying to justify an answer rather than finding the right one. C tier. Next on the docket is the Last Airbender tea. I want this. I want this very badly. Iroh's Tea Shop always looked incredibly cozy to me as a kid. But, when I try to put bias out of my mind, there's just no way tea is a Thanksgiving food. However, if effort is a component in what makes something valuable during Thanksgiving, it's hard to argue that anything on this list has more love put into it than the food Iroh makes. And on that technicality, I'm gonna give this one a C tier. Let's wrap up Avatar with its third and final food token. Wait a second, is that pumpkin soup? Hard to tell, but it's an opaque orange, and the pumpkins in the background heavily allude to that being the case. If so, Avatar might have just surprised us with an actually really apt Thanksgiving food. The only other thing in this image is garlic, but for having such a called shot item, I'm happy to give this token a B tier. Commander 2021 brings us yet another stew that will kill me. It looks like it tastes head and shoulders above eyeball stew, but I think the moths and poison dart frog imply that I wouldn't be walking away from this one. I'm not sure if it's intentional, but the bread's cross-section kind of looks like a skull. It gets bonus points for being bread though, so this is going right next to our other deadly soup in D tier. Okay, back to the fare. Yet another, literally just a burger. What sets this apart is how it comes with a side and drink. Outside of its novelty height, this is just the Japanese burger card and a Nuka-Cola, so it goes into C tier with both of them. In the untamed wastes of Thunder Junction, apparently they subsist on pink gumbo. A couple of major issues here. Firstly, that's a whole eyeball. Secondly, someone left a thorned cactus pad inside of it. Getting a bit more granular, although beans make an appearance here, they are black beans, not baked. It also definitively lacks the made with love quality, as someone neglected to remove a whole can from its center. I almost want to give it something for having a croissant, but I think it earns a firm F tier. Another secret layer. This time, it's an array of living Mexican dishes. I cannot describe how uncomfortable the idea of eating something that's alive makes me feel. Sentience aside, the food itself looks great, and it even comes with a drink as well as several side dishes. It's just that none of them make great stand-ins for the holiday classics. I'm between C and D, but we'll play it safe and put it in D tier for now. We all have that one picky relative that eats nothing but hot dogs and mac and cheese, so I'm sure they would be elated to see this at the Thanksgiving table. Besides this, my family is Polish, so kielbasa in buns with sauerkraut is not unheard of at our Thanksgivings. This is obviously a step away from that, but I'm going to give it a low C tier based on the relationship between hot dogs and sausage. I hate this secret layer. It's just a burger, without a side, which means it's harder to cope about being appropriate at the table. Yes, I know, Krabby Patty funny, but why is it in Magic? Stick it in D tier just so I don't have to see it anymore. Okay, this one is so close, it's so close. An assortment of breads, a mug of something, and a big old egg as the centerpiece. The issue comes with lacking critical components. There is no meat to be seen on this board. The thing to the left of the eggs looks like a mushroom, but it's hard to tell. Also, the massive egg is soft-boiled, not deviled. If either of these weren't the case, I think it would sit squarely in A tier, but we gotta put it in B tier as it stands. Another Throne of Eldraine card, another great add to the list. Upon first viewing, this looks really promising. There's literally a pig with an apple in its mouth. How can we go wrong? A couple of minor ways is how. Eggs are a great addition, but it's lacking two key ingredients: a carb and some kind of vegetable. I'm comfortable assuming that the pig's actual meat is somewhere on the table, less so with a side of mashed potatoes. Also, the pheasants might be a good stand-in for turkey, but this, again, leaves the plate only really repping the protein. B tier. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have yet another all-timer for the Thanksgiving table. The centerpiece is a haunch of something, but hey, they're making do with whatever weird meat they have in Eldraine. The accoutrements are what really steals the show though. A loaf of bread, some small desserts, and a slice of pie. It's hard to tell what's in it, but it's kind of dark, so I'm going to assume blueberry. This is textbook Thanksgiving dinner. The Flaming Stein is a bit much, but I think this easily clears the requirements for A tier. And that's all of them. I thought there were more, but a lot of the food tokens ended up being reprints or foiled versions of previous printings. I was pretty surprised with how many of these ended up being ideal Thanksgiving spreads. Eldraine and Lord of the Rings really carried the list in that department. But food obviously isn't where Thanksgiving starts and ends. The company you spend it with is 10 times more important than what's for dinner. Final Fantasy XV's Backstreet Boys are probably having a much more fun celebration together than the majority of groups featured here, barbecue food or not. So, make sure to put some time aside this week to spend it with the people that matter to you. Life, like magic, is much better with friends. I'm gonna go hang out with mine. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and I'll see you next time.